YouTube, I believe. I mean, like, it'd be cool to maybe assess that and make sure. But apparently YouTube and apparently Facebook.
Love.
We'll see. We'll
Great.
see what happens. We'll see if anyone shows up. I don't even want to try and like search it right now because I'm worried that the sound is going to go crazy.
One thing at a time.
Yeah, one thing at a time. We can always check after, and if no one listened, whatever, it'll still be a great conversation. It's important stuff to chat about anyway. So
agreed.
So for anyone out there that might be watching, if there's anyone out there,
yeah,
if anyone's out there, please comment and let us know that you're here with us, because I think you can comment from Instagram Facebook and YouTube. I sound like I'm like just new to the cyberspace. Like I think you can comment on YouTube Live. It's like, you can, honey.
I just started using the internet, so new things.
So Alex and I decided to come on tonight and we have one viewer. So I guess there is someone out there. There is someone out there that has access to the stream somewhere on one of the platforms we're streaming onto. So Alex and I decided to show up after months of, not doing lives together. Last year, just to give you guys context, we started doing this weekly, and sometimes we would do it twice a week, conversation called Love Through Fear. And basically the whole premise of it, the whole sort of point was to have difficult conversations and to try and sort of like hack our way through solutions. It was a community conversation. We chatted about the things that we wanted to find solutions for. We chatted about things that other people wanted to find solutions for. And so we did this for quite some time, and then we just kind of put a pause on it. I was definitely going through some things at the time and needed some headspace, and that was my reasoning. And I think we were just kind of going to assess in general what we wanted to do. So this is sort of a little reunion of that. Just showing up to have another conversation about difficult things, finding solutions, chatting about what has worked for us or what we think could work for us. So if you're listening and you're going through a difficult time, we would love to hear. I mean, even if you're not, we would love to hear from you either way. Things that you want to chat about, things you want us to chat about, solutions that you found to be effective for you, solutions that you want to ask us about that we might be able to offer you. We always like to say this isn't, we're not here to offer you answers. We don't have the answers. We just have thoughts and ideas, and some of them are backed by science and some of them are opinions, and we'll certainly let you know when things are fact and when things are opinions. I mean, I'm very stringent on that, so I can say that for myself. But I'm sure you do too. But I don't want to put that on everybody. My level of whatever expectation around that. Anyway, so I've been kind of going off and giving you context on Love Through Fear and what that has been and why we started doing that so long ago to support the community. But I want to pass it over to Alex so she can have a chance to reintroduce herself and let you know about her and her background and why she's pumped to be here tonight.
Woohoo! Yay! Thanks for that intro. Yeah, so I mean, I guess where even to begin? You and I met at doing a public speaking gig for doing some youth work and instilling resilience into young kids. And then our friendship took off from there, and we obviously have similar passions in common. I guess just a little bit about me for anyone who may be watching or not is I started my mindset journey when I was quite young, about 13 or 14 years old, as a competitive gymnast. And that work has carried me through into the present, and it's made me really driven to learn more about human behavior and what we're capable of as humans to live our full, authentic life in a meaningful way. And then aside from that, I have done marketing, corporate marketing for about 9 years. And I kind of like ebb and flow in and out of that industry as needed. And am currently running mindfulness groups because that's something that's really important to me. And so that's me.
Mindfulness, man, it's so important, and it's obviously become extremely popular, probably because it's so important. It's like, as I say, in my work, and it's really not something that I can claim that I came up with, because it's so rational and obvious. But like, the first step to any change is awareness. Like, you really can't change what you can't see, and in order to acquire awareness, you really do need to practice mindfulness. And so, I think that's why there's such a high demand, and why there's so many mindfulness advocates and programs and books and podcasts even, trying to explain to people what it is. It's really interesting though. Like, it's such a simple concept. Like, mindfulness itself is quite simple. It's just maybe not easy to practice, because it shows you challenging things sometimes, and it takes effort and time and patience. So
totally.
yes.
I always say that you typically, from the people that have joined my groups, it's like you start learning about mindfulness when you need to. It's not something that usually people wake up in the morning and they're like jazzed, generally speaking, to be like, I'm gonna go learn about mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah.
It's usually something that, I know even myself personally, like, it came into my life when I was really struggling, and I was like, I need something to help me, and then it came into my life. And it's not always just the sitting on a cushion and meditating, but working it through and into social aspects and day-to-day life when experiencing emotional triggers or self-critical thoughts, which we're going to talk about today, and just being aware of what those stories are. And this separating the thought and the self, and getting a little bit more clear.
Yeah, becoming the third party sort of spectator, becoming sort of this observer versus the experiencer of the reality that is current. It's so huge, and I agree with you. It's the hard times, it's the blind spots that cause the problems in your life that sort of drive the incentive to be more mindful, to then gain the awareness about the things that are causing the problems. For sure, it's the same experience with me too. For the longest time, it was, I would meditate, and the meditation, I think, served me well as a kid and as a young adult and whatnot. But the focus really did shift towards mindfulness when, my blind spots were affecting my relationships and affecting my life and my health. It was like, okay, how do I address that? And so the first step obviously is gaining awareness, and being mindful is how you gain awareness, pretty much.
And I find it so humbling that even when you practice mindfulness, it's like it's still so easy to forget, and then you're like, oh, like, come back to the present moment. I got wrapped up in that thought, or I was telling myself a story, and it's like, I get better as I practice it, but it's still such a humbling experience to because in the human experience, it's often like I forgot, and then I remember to come back to myself, and then I forgot again, and then now I'm coming back into myself again, and it's this kind of like ebb and flow.
Dude, even when you remember, even when you are mindfulness, like, sometimes the instinct and the reflex is to still choose the old habit, right? Like, we're just human at the end of the day. It just always comes down to that. Like, it's like, even when we know better, sometimes we don't do better, and it's still kind of the best we could have done, So it's being a human and being aware of your humanness is a very humbling experience. And that, I believe, is something that we will have to face until the day we die. We'll have to reckon with our own growth. And so we're in the ground. So, like, get ready.
Come along for the ride.
Yeah. So to pivot into the subject of tonight, this is a topic that's so near and dear to me. Just this idea of struggling with self-doubt and the inner critic, and finding ways to address that, and to be able to manage it and cope with it. I don't know if you can see the comments, but I'm seeing them on my end.
Yay! That's awesome.
So we've been having viewers this whole time, but the comments, I guess, they're just showing up now. So we're everyone who just joined. We're trying a new software tonight, and so that we can stream on multiple platforms and have access to the video for micro content after, which Instagram doesn't allow you to do. And so we wanted to expand our audience. We can't just stick to Instagram all the time. So tonight we wanted to chat about the inner critic and how that can be kind of contested. And I just wanted to personally give a little bit of insight into sort of the lead up of what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to chat about what I have learned to be Albert Ellis's rational emotive theory. It's under the umbrella of cognitive behavioral therapy. And Alex is currently reading a book right now with this theory in it, written by
Dr. Seligman. Oh, gosh,
Sweet.
Here, The Optimistic Child.
Dr. Who?
Seligman.
Got
Martin
it.
P. Seligman.
Cool. I like that I said Doctor Who, and that's like actually a real, I guess it's a fictional character, but still. Anyway, lame joke. So to give context on that, what that is it's essentially a mechanism to help you separate maladaptive beliefs from fact, so that you can kind of contest the maladaptive beliefs that actually, that lead to these negative consequences in your life. But before we get into that, I wanted to just sort of talk about how, much like we were just discussing, mindfulness itself is sort of the first step to even before even getting there, because in order to change anything, you have to see it. So many people like to jump straight to, let's contest the inner critic. And the reason that I don't believe that's effective is because A, you can't contest the inner critic until you've actually heard specifically what it's saying. So the first step, I believe, to contesting, or challenging or disputing, whichever way you want, or reasoning with the inner critic, is you have to first see and listen to what it's actually saying, so you can build awareness around the specific dialogue that's happening inside of your head. And then the second phase to that is being able to acknowledge it. So we can become aware of something and then completely deny it. And this is where I always talk about acceptance being the second step to change, because in this context, acceptance would be acknowledgement. Like, I acknowledge this is a real thought that I'm having. It doesn't mean I'm accepting it and wipe my hands and I guess that's that. That's not acceptance, that's submission. But acceptance is actually a very powerful tool and requires a lot of courage, because what you're essentially saying is, I'm going to meet my own reality with as much honesty as possible. So there's one thing to be aware of your reality. It's another thing to go, okay, now I'm going to meet it with honesty and acknowledge it and accept it. That then gives you the platform to adjust it. And that's where this, what we're going to talk about today, this Ellis's rational emotive theory kind of comes into place. The adjustment in this respect would be disputing or reasoning with these negative maladaptive beliefs that create negative consequences and behaviors in your life. So that's something I just really wanted to include in sort of a preface for what we're about to say, and happy to listen to anything you might have to add to that too.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job. Like, it's like you only know there's a story in your head when you realize that there's a story in your head, and that takes awareness and it takes practice and taking the opportunity to be still with yourself and start dissecting and pulling apart. I feel like sometimes the thought can be really kind of stuck to the human experience, and to kind of like peel it back and realize that there's separateness, and then to be able to create space. For me, that's where I work with a lot of my people on is to create space between the human experience and the thought, to then pause and be able to choose something different. Because if we're not pausing to choose something different, then we're going to continue doing what we've always done, which is sometimes just that knee-jerk reaction into the old patterns that we have. So I think you did a great job. That was awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Creating space, like essentially like the act of mindfulness, inherently the purpose of it is to create a gap between stimuli and response. So the more mindfulness we have of our moment to moment, physiologically, emotionally, and psychologically, we then have more control to choose when there's a greater gap between the stimuli and the response of those three sort of states. And mindfulness is incredible for that. And so what you said just now was, okay, the purpose is to create a gap first so that we have more of a chance to then, intentionally choose what comes next. And, as we said earlier, sometimes even when we know better, we still choose, what we've done before, the old habit, and that's just human and that's fine. But, what we're what we're gearing into with Ellis's theory is, okay, so what happens when we do have a gap? We have done the work to create awareness, and now there is a gap between understanding what the maladaptive belief is and sort of then what. And so I think what would be smart is just to kind of go through the theory, and then we can kind of break it down and apply, give examples of how to apply it.
Sure.
Or even like, I have a personal story of something that happened to me recently that used this and that was effective. So firstly, yeah.
Love it. I love a good example.
But I didn't actually do the AB, like I didn't cognitively, intentionally do the ABC. It's happened on its own. And then I kind of was like, oh, that kind of happened. Like I did this. So long story short, Ellis's rational emotive theory includes A, B, C, D, E, and each letter represents something specific. A is very simple. It represents adversity. And that's essentially the fact of reality that triggers a belief. So adversity occurs, and that triggers a belief, and that's the B. And that belief, if it's maladaptive, it creates a consequence, which is C, and that consequence, leads to all kinds of other adversity, or perhaps perpetuates the cycle that it began with in the first place. So the same type of adversity that triggered the maladaptive belief in the first place. So that's ABC. It's like adversity happens, a belief occurs, and that belief then leads to consequences, a negative consequence perhaps. And then Ellis and you can, when you speak, you can talk about the author of the book who's using Ellis's theory, because I already can't remember his last name to include him in the discussion, but it's relevant. According to Ellis, D is then the act of disputing the belief. So it's like basically his idea is like, if we can change the belief, we can change the consequence. So the first step to changing the belief would be to dispute it. Like, and how would you dispute that? You'd look for evidence. Well, what is actually true about this belief? Like, let me write down all of the things that are true. Oh, there's nothing? Okay, well, is the belief true then? So that's the dispute aspect, is like, let me really put this to the test. And then E is coming up with effective adaptive beliefs. So we've got adversity triggers beliefs, the beliefs triggers consequences, but we don't have to let that happen. We can go back to the belief, become aware of the belief. Hopefully we have enough space so that we can not react to the belief and go, wait a second, let me dispute the belief and create a more effective belief. So that's very quickly to summarize Ellis's theory on essentially separating facts from beliefs, and so that we can change our inner dialogue and prevent the inner critic from ruining our lives.
Love that.
Right.
There's a slight, actually, like a little difference. You said E. What did you say? It was the effect of
creating effective beliefs. So instead of like once you dispute the beliefs, you like change the belief. Like you create a new narrative, essentially.
Got it. So in this book, it's the energetic shift. So
okay.
Once so I guess, I don't know if that makes it a brand new belief system or not, but that's just the difference of the E's based on the context that we're speaking about them. And I'll just make sure to note that when we're talking about that.
How does the author describe the energetic shift? Like, what does he indicate? Like, so
if you have a belief that is, or like a story, like, let me see, like this book is called The Optimistic Child. It's all about safeguarding children against depression and anxiety for lifelong resilience. So a lot of the examples in here are used for kids, but I'll just use this example. So if there's a belief of no one likes me at school, so no one is, there's not really a lot of room to wiggle with that, because no one is an absolute word.
It's an absolute.
And so the first step is to say, well, who is no one, right? So this is disputing what the belief is, to say, well, no one is my friend Sarah and John. Okay, well, that's not no one. So your friends Sarah and John don't like you. Well, why? What happened? So as the belief gets broken down, there's an energetic shift of like, oh, it's not no one that doesn't like me. It's just Sarah and John. And so now I feel a little bit better because I feel hopeful again, as opposed to believing this absolute belief, which is no one likes me at school.
Okay, got it. Okay. So I think he's effectively jumping to and I have to read the book. Obviously, this is a complete assumption, but it sounds like the author is jumping to what the byproduct of a more effective belief would be. So if the child says, oh yeah, not no one, like it's not no one that likes me, it's just John and Sally or whoever the kids were, then as a byproduct, there would be presumably an energetic shift. And like a feeling of a goodness feeling, a feeling of feeling good, because right,
because it's only John and Sally.
That's right, or Sue or whatever you said,
or Sue, whatever I said.
So I think it's a cool way to describe it too, and like it seems like it's on par with sort of with what we're saying. So if there's anybody watching right now and you feel inspired to share something that you are going through that you want us to almost workshop with this method, we can do that. It like as a community conversation, just shooting the shit type thing. This is not a therapeutic session, just to be clear. But until someone essentially writes a comment and say like, hey, like how would I change this belief, and we can attempt to break that down using Alice's theory. I can share with you something that happened with me recently that, in essence, was sort of the trend. It kind of went through this process, like not intentionally, but basically. And Al, if you have anything, I'd love to hear your examples too.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody wants to put in the chat a belief that they want us to help break down using Alice's theory, then we would be pumped to try and do that. But until then, I'll share something that happened to me recently. So when I was taking a social media break, I was having a really hard time. And one thing that I'm not going to get into this too much, but I'll just kind of preface it with this, when challenging beliefs, this process that we just described, it's super, super useful. There are also times where the belief is very intrusive and strong and fast, and there isn't much time, as we were saying before with mindfulness, there isn't much time for there to be a gap between stimuli and response. So there isn't much time for there to be a gap between the trigger and the intrusive thought and your reaction to the intrusive thought. And I find that is especially true with suicidal thoughts, which are very, very scary and common actually, but they're very, very scary, and they're just a different level of challenge to deal with them. So I just wanted to offer that thought, but I won't get too deep into that. I'm just going to go into the experience that I had. So while I was taking some time away from social media, I was struggling with intrusive thoughts. I was struggling a little bit with suicidal thoughts. It was not ideation. It was not into the phase where I was creating the plan or anything like that. But they were there, and they were coming at me. And I got a voice. I was meditating one day, and I got a voice note from a friend that said, it was actually Rob Johnson. He said, remember, Janey, today, that you have the power of the creator of the universe on your side. And I was about to go into my meditation, and I heard this, and I thought, no, I don't. no, I don't. You know what I mean? Like, and I just had this feeling of like, I'm alone. I don't feel supported. I don't feel like the universe has my back. I don't feel like, I don't feel like the world wants me to win. I'm here again in my darkness and I'm suffering. Like that doesn't to me seem like the creator is on my side, right? So this was my thought. This was the belief. And this is a belief that I've had many times over. It's definitely connected to suicidal thoughts. It's not, it's not all. It doesn't always, trigger intrusive suicidal thoughts, but it's connected to this. It's just this feeling of, no, I'm like being punished. I'm actually being worked against. Like something's happening here where I continue to have to face this level of mental health challenges over and over again when I've done all this work and I've done all this therapy, and like, why am I here again? The only reason the only conclusion that I can come up with as to why I'm here again is that the universe isn't on my side. It's against me, actually. So this is what was going on in my head. And because I was probably sitting silently in my room in the dark, I thought to myself, or at least I was aware of the fact that these were thoughts that I was having. I was like, well, wait a second. Why do I believe that the creator of the universe isn't on my side? Like why would I believe that the world is against me? Like, I get that I'm like facing challenges again, but so does everybody. Everybody faces challenges. So why does that make me any different than anyone else that faces their own demons? Like, Al, your demons and your challenges don't look like mine. They never, they maybe never have, and my challenges don't look like yours. But just because you don't struggle with the mental conditions that I struggle with doesn't mean that you don't face challenges. And just because I don't, struggle with the same things that someone else doesn't mean that I don't have challenges. And so it's like everybody has challenges. Like, it is true that everyone has challenges. Does that mean that the universe is not on their side? Does that mean that they don't belong on Earth, right? So that was the first thing that caused me to just, it gave me like just enough time to question it, to put a gap between the stimuli, the trigger, the thought, and my response to it, the repetitive, reconfirming narrative of, yeah, no, this is bullshit, right? So, okay, so then I started to think about, so like what you could see here is that like I was triggered, right? Adversity happened. My adversity was my depression, my anxiety, and the mental illness that I was struggling with. That belief that was inspired by my anxiety and depression, like in my room and just whatever. Like, I don't want to like put myself down, but I was definitely in a place of just like beating myself up and kind of pitying myself and all of that kind of self-loathing BS. It's like, that's the belief that I was reinforcing. It's like I said, it's a belief I've had before. So I think it's probably why it was continuing the pattern. And then as a consequence, I just believed it more. Like, as a consequence, I was like confirmation bias. Like, I was looking for evidence that confirmed why my belief was true. But then for whatever reason, when I had that space, like that little instant, well, is that true? That ability to be like, well, is that true? Probably as a result of practicing mindfulness for a long time, like just had that ability to be like, all right, is that true? That true is that was me contesting. That was me going into D, which we explained was disputing the belief. Well, wait a second. Everybody has challenges. They look totally different than mine, but does that mean that the universe wants them to die? Like, does that mean the universe is against them? No. Furthermore, what then happened was I kind of went into E. And again, like, I didn't really think this through. It wasn't like I was like A, B, C. It just kind of happened intuitively, let's say. And I'm sure that this has probably happened intuitively to many other people, but this is sort of what Ellis is describing is happening here. So E, the more effective belief, which in Alex's book, she described as the energetic shift. What happened was, once I disputed my belief, it actually turned itself around. And I started to think about all of the times I've had close calls and still made it out the other side. Like, all of the times that I was in a really risky situation that I shouldn't have been in, that I maybe put myself in, or that I was in by accident. I started to think about that. I started to think about all the times that I played with substance abuse. And, if I had just had one more little bit of X substance, who knows what would happen? Or if I was just 1 inch to the left, that car would have hit me. Or, so on and so forth. Like, I just started thinking about all of these times that didn't turn into catastrophes. And it's like, well, isn't that evidence that the universe is on my side? Like, I didn't die here, here, and here when I should have. Isn't that evidence that I'm supposed to be here, that I belong here? So it's like, and then furthermore, like the kicker, this was the thing that made me change my mind about this. And I think honestly, it was potentially the thing that started to turn this most recent episode around. This belief was like the cherry on top. It was like, well, let's also just go further and think about all the times that it was a total shit show. Like, think about all the times that you didn't think you were going to make it. It was that bad. It was that painful. You were ill enough to like not make it through, and you did. Like, you breathing here isn't that evidence enough that you're supposed to be here and that the universe is on your side. And so, like, that's an example of a belief that I've repeated over and over again, this belief of, I'm clearly not worthy enough to like be okay or be happy. Therefore, because here I am unhappy again, here I am in my darkness facing this condition that I have. And that means that I'm just not supposed to figure this out. I'm not supposed to be happy. And maybe I'm not even supposed to be on earth. Like, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe that's the point, right? Like, this intrusive narrative comes in and I sometimes latch onto it and believe it. But what I just described was an example of how you can dispute it and change the narrative. And I'm not saying that forevermore, like because I'm going to have to fight this demon 1,000 times, I'm sure. I'm not saying that when I have to fight this demon again, like, that isn't going to happen again, where I'm just thinking, all right, this is fucking it. Like me feeling like this again, like for the 10,000th time, makes no sense to me. And therefore, right, like, that could happen again. But the point is, and this is the last thing I'll say, because I definitely want to pass it just all the way over to you. Yeah, I guess the point is, like, at least I see the path now to D and E, right? At least I see the path with that specific belief, because I've done it before. I have a path. I have a a light trail that I can go, well, I've disputed this belief before and I've changed it into an effective belief before, resulting in an energetic shift before around this belief. I can do it again. I just have to follow my tracks back to what I discovered before. So that's my example. I know it's intense. Like, I have intense experiences. I don't know what else to say. And to be honest, like, talking about it is part of ending the stigma. And so I'm probably just not going to hold back on my intense experiences. But yeah, that's that. Al, over to you.
Thanks for sharing that. It is an intense experience. And honestly, I think now more than ever, it's important to talk about it because of how little it's being talked about. And so I can only imagine how many Me Too's can come out of that. So thank you for sharing that, breaking it down and talking through the process. The last thing that you said there was like, now I know the path from D to E. And I think that's so important. It's so huge. This is why I was writing down all your ABCDs because
I saw.
because I was like, I don't want to forget your process. I'm write it down. So what I love about this process is that it makes it tangible. Like, it gives you a path to like a place to begin. And what I love about what you did is that you took yourself out of the context of yourself and you put yourself into somebody else's shoes. Like, you said, well, how am I different? If the universe is on everyone else's side, why not mine? And
Right.
I totally agree with this in that I've had so many moments where everyone else can do it, but I can't do it for some reason. Like I've somehow made myself the anomaly. And like, which is insane.
How narcissistic of us.
I'm like, all of a sudden, like I'm like the special person that can't do it, you know? And I love how you disputed the thought because it's like you can take yourself out of the context of yourself, and that's one way to do it. And then you can also, like for myself, and I was like trying to think of an example, but then I got like really wrapped up in your story. And the one that's coming to mind right now is my self-limit, or like kind of like my self-worth stuff, really about like so, we're here for radical honesty, so I'm just gonna be honest with it. It's like all these like young 20 somethings that are like killing it and like caking in the business world, and here I am being like, well, I'm making it hard for myself, or there's something that I'm blocking, or I'm blocked in some way of, or believing that that I don't have what it takes. And like I've had 9 years in corporate marketing and business. Like, what? So it's like I can take myself out and say, well, if a 22-year-old can do it, why can't I? And then to dispute with myself, it's like, okay, well, a 22-year-old can do it, and I have 9 years of corporate business experience. I have a number of resources, not only from a business standpoint, but also, you know, like I work with a psychologist, I have business mentors, and I know people who have been successful in this industry with all different kinds of backgrounds. So that's just, I wanted to point that out, of just like the two different kinds of disputations, because both are helpful. So I love that you said that. And yeah, and then I love that you were like, out of all of the times within your own life, this was another disputation that you said within your own life, is all of the times that I had a close call and made it out, those were times that the universe did support me. And I feel like I had an energetic release when you said that. Like I was like, oh my God, me too. Like, whoa, the universe has supported me so many times when I was like, what the fuck is my life right now? You know what I mean? Like in times of the complete unknown, where I've been so rattled and disassociated and out of my body, and the universe has been like, it's all right. Like I got you. And like, it's all going to be good. Like, and this time is going to pass and you can get through it. And it's incredible because I'll have, I'll have moments. Like the past year has been hard. I think we've all kind of had our fair share of the ebbs and flows within the COVID experience, to say the least. And, I'll think back on the times where I was like my rock bottom moment. And yeah, I was like, wow, well, if my body supported me and if my mind supported me when I was in that space, then why not now? Yeah, and it just helped me really get behind myself and give me the confidence and the support that I needed. It's like that inner critic kind of comes in, and the story comes in, and I just like, I feel like within those thoughts, I am consistently devaluing myself. Like I'm not giving myself an opportunity. But when I look at a process like this, I'm kind of like, okay, let me actually work it. Let me be a skeptic of my own mind, ask myself, is this the truth? And give myself that space or separation, to give myself a fighting chance that I am resourceful, that the universe does have my back, that I'm strongly supported by my friends and my family, that I have meaningful relationships, that I'm, actively working within a community of therapists and friends who are like cheerleaders for me, and mentors who are cheerleaders for me. And yeah, so I think I loved your example. I think that there were so many great parts to what you were saying, and I'm glad that it was intense as it was, and I'm glad you're being part of breaking the stigma, because honestly, we need to talk about it. And I know Marie has made a comment there, and this is an important discussion, and this is what we're here for. This is love through fear. Let's go.
Exactly, man. Totally. Yeah, it is. It's a massively important conversation. And to be honest, like that's the reason I came back to social. Like I mean, it's fair to say that I have partnerships with different brands that I greatly respect, and we do cross promotion for each other, and that's something that I've committed to. But beyond that, like I really don't. I really do get more out of my real life, like when social isn't isn't part of it. Like I am more deeply connected to myself, my reality, my experience, and I'm more productive when I don't have social media in my life. Like that is what I've discovered by this point, because I've gone off social a few times. But I also can't hide, you know what I mean, forever. And I know that people, like, we are both told that, you know, the work that we do is helping people. You know, I've had a few people reach out to me and literally tell me I've saved their life. Whether I believe that or not, you know what I mean? Like, whether I am going to allow myself to believe that's true, or just that they're, you know, that they, like, I don't know. I don't know that I can like even take that in, you know, but it's like I'm hearing it, and I'm hearing, whether I believe I actually saved their life or not, that's not really at question here. It's, oh, I'm helping this person. I'm seeing that I'm helping this person in a very, very deeply meaningful way. And that's why I'm on here. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's just to kind of like go back to what you said about these are important conversations. It's like, damn right they are. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's conversations that I need, and I know there's conversations that other people need because of what they've both told us. And it's like kind of the only reason I want to come back, like, onto social. So yeah. I feel that, man.
Well, I'm fucking pumped that you're back. I mean, you're like anyone who's like learning about mental health. I'm like Janey Brown, 100%. Janey Brown is my go-to girl. And there's something that you said, and we've talked a lot about before, is boundaries. And it's like, I love that you have the clear mission of what social media is to you and the message that you want to send and the work that you're doing in this space. Because it's the same thing even with this process. It's like the boundaries that you have in your life to protect your mental health, but to also show up for it. Or, you know, it's kind of this paradox, right? So,
yeah.
Which is so interesting. So it's like, well, what's the balance and the paradox? And then there's also the internal boundaries. So it's like these thoughts are flying, these stories are flying through, and then they get into the tornado. And it's kind of like, well, what point are we saying, all right, I've suffered enough. Let's take a pause. Let me look at this and give myself an opportunity to prove to myself that, you know, the universe does have my back, or that I am supported, or that I am worthy, or that I can do it, or that I am resourceful and smart, you know, no matter where that came from, and no matter how long ago that belief got formed or was formed. The boundaries on the inside and the outside to protect your well-being is like, I mean, how important is that?
Yeah. So important. And it's important too for me to know, like, and I never claimed this, but like, social wasn't the reason that I like ended up in the darkness again. Like, that's just, you know, the chronicles of Janey Brown or whatever. And like, whatever, the chronicles of everyone, you know what I mean? Everyone has their own.
We have chronicles.
Yeah. You know? So I'm not like, you know, I want to make clear, like, I'm not demonizing social or anything like that, but it, you know, for sure when I'm really, like, it's weird. Like, sometimes I will greatly struggle, but be able to show up still. And like, it's not like I'm burying it or not addressing it behind the scenes. I am, but I'm able to just sort of like leave it aside and show up live and get on stage still. But it was just, I don't know, it was just this feeling in the last few months where I was like, I don't have to be on stage. I don't have any regular live things going on right now. Like, I'm just going to stop. And it was really key that I have kept going probably, like, but it was, the opportunity was that I could stop so that I could just, I guess, look under the rocks that I haven't looked under yet, and just have another fucking round with, you know, my demons.
Yeah, like, well, totally. And it's like, whenever going through something, and this is like for myself, I look at all of the places where I'm putting energy. And even social media, whether I'm posting, showing up, not showing up, if it's open and I'm scrolling, I'm allowing different energy to come in. And so it's an important one, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're active or not active. It doesn't matter. Like, if you're consuming it, there's mental real estate that's being taken up.
100%.
And and so I think it's great that you're saying that, and that it is social media is, and I think like the word's out on this one, which is great, about how detrimental it can be. It can be helpful and it can be detrimental, and you get to choose which one it's doing for you at any given moment, and you get to choose is this serving me or is this not serving me? Do I need to delete the app entirely for a bit, or whatever the parameters are, in order to get yourself or myself back to optimal well-being?
Right. Totally. Yeah, no, it's very, everything you said rings totally true for me, at least, like, and I'm sure for others. It's, yeah, you got to decide. And I wanted to go back a little bit with, I definitely had a question for you when you were describing sort of your thought processes around like disputing your beliefs. One thing I want to make clear is I think that this is where people get confused between like positive affirmations and reframing, and like the amount of like the expectations people have around reframing. Like, is it essentially that's what Ellis's theory is you're reframing maladaptive beliefs so that you can create different consequences in your emotional